So here's a question. Have you ever thought to yourself recently, I'll just use AI to build my website. How hard can it be? Or maybe you saw someone post on Facebook about it. Maybe you watched a video on YouTube where someone typed a few prompts into an AI tool and suddenly a website appeared. Or maybe you even tried it yourself. You described your business, you picked a style, you asked for a homepage, and then within minutes, there it was, a website concept, a layout, a design. And honestly, to you, it was impressive. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that AI can't design a website because it absolutely can. AI can absolutely generate a website design. It can give you a homepage layout, it can write the copy, it can create sections, suggest colors and fonts, write code, and it can give you something that at first glance looks like a real website. And it's kind of amazing. But here is where I think the conversation gets a little bit more interesting. People keep asking the question, can AI build my website? And I think that that is probably the wrong question to be asking. The better question to ask is, what happens after? What happens after AI gives you that mock-up? What happens after it generates a homepage for you or gives you a prototype? What happens when you need to make it strategic or live or make updates or when something breaks? What happens when the website that the AI gives you looks good, but it doesn't actually communicate what you do, who you help, why someone should trust you, or what they should do next, those calls to action? And this is part of what I want to talk about today because AI can absolutely design a website, but can it design the right website? Can it design something built on actual strategy? And can it save you time if you spend hours prompting it, tweaking it, regenerating it, and trying to get it to understand what you mean? And then here's another question. Once it gives you something that looks good, do you actually know what to do with it? And I think this is where a lot of small business owners are getting stuck. And I thought it would be fun to have a chat about it in today's episode. Welcome to Website Design Made Simple, the podcast for busy small business owners who want a high-performing website that converts and sells their offers, even while they're sleeping. Because you deserve to have a strategic and beautiful website that truly represents your brand and positions you as the expert that you are. I'm your host, Jenny B, web designer and creative director at Jenny B Designs, where we believe that your website is the one thing that makes you sales and builds your brand at the same time. Ready to say goodbye to a website that you're embarrassed to share? And hello to a money-making, personality-packed powerhouse? Let's head into today's episode. All right, welcome to today's episode. We're talking AI. And I love this topic. I love AI. I love using it in my workflow to automate whatever I can to help me save time. And I'm recording this. If you're listening to this live, it is May in 2026. And the AI landscape is changing so fast. It is constantly getting updates and new tools. We just got Claude Design, I think a couple weeks ago. We have Claude Cowork, Claude Chat. There's going to be Claude Small Business, which is coming very soon. So things are changing. And I am making this episode as I am recording today on what I'm seeing. And I think that things might change probably faster than not. But I think it's really helpful to have this conversation. I want to share with you is that I, again, love AI. And these tools are getting better and better. But I want small business owners to do what's best for their business. And where things stand as of right now, as of today, I think that AI is much better at creating a starting point rather than creating a finished, strategic, easy to maintain website. And those are two very different things. A starting point is helpful. A prototype is helpful. A mock-up, a pretty homepage concept. But a prototype is not a finished website. A mock-up isn't a strategy, and a pretty section that you see that something AI created isn't a conversion path. A website that looks impressive in a screenshot when you create something with these AI tools isn't automatically a website that will help someone understand your business and take action. And there is a gap. And that gap is where a lot of the real website work happens and what I love to do. I've been seeing a lot of posts on Facebook, in Facebook groups and in Facebook pages, people asking for help. They're trying to use AI to build a website for their business. And someone would ask a question and say, I can't get AI to build me this website. What am I doing wrong? And are hundreds of comments on these posts. Like every time I see one, I'm so curious about what people are saying. And the comments are all over the place. Some people are saying things like use Squarespace or use Wix and design it over there. Other people are giving information about how you can get a website from prototype to online and using words like host it on Netify, push it to GitHub, use a different AI tool, or using Claude or using Chat, use this builder. And some of these suggestions, while they are technically correct, they're actually not helpful to the person asking the question. Because this person, who is probably a small business owner wanting to create a website on the cheap and get it up with AI, probably doesn't know what Netlify is or what GitHub is. They don't know hosting environments or file structures or domains. And so AI may be able to generate a concept, a website homepage, a website, but that doesn't mean that you know where to put that thing that it generates. And it doesn't mean that you know how to maintain the thing that it generates. And it definitely doesn't mean that this output is strategically right for your business. So I want to share what AI can actually do, because I think a lot of this conversation around AI is one side or the other. Like AI can't do anything helpful. It never works for me. Or AI is going to replace every single web designer out in the universe. And I don't think either of these things are true. I think that AI can do very useful things. It can create ideas, generate ideas, create visual directions, write starter copy, help you think about page sections, write code, generate a homepage concept. And it can give you something that feels surprisingly close. And with the right tools and access and technical setup, AI can create and deploy actual websites. This part is real, and I'm going to share with you how I did this. But there's a massive difference between an AI-generated website concept and a strategic website that is live, secure, polished, mobile-friendly, easy to update, and built to support your business goals. Strategic websites, that's what I've been talking about for many years. And this isn't a tiny gap. This is the whole project. Because to get a website live and working, there are so many different layers: strategy, messaging, structure. And there's the design, the hosting, the domain, the mobile experience, image sizes, backups, maintenance, future edits. And when you're a business owner, you shouldn't be asking, can I just get something online? You really need to ask yourself, can this website help me build trust, explain what I do, and move the right people towards working with me? And that's a much bigger question. And AI doesn't automatically answer that for you. So these prototypes that you see AI generating, like if you go into Claude and you give them a prompt, tell them your business, and it creates a prototype. Maybe you say, create a modern website for a wellness coach who helps women reduce stress and feel more confident during perimenopause. And AI gives you something. They give you a hero, a headline, some beautiful soft colors. There's a button. You see some services cards, a testimonial, about section, and you think to yourself, wow, this is pretty good. And sometimes it is pretty good. I've seen a bunch of websites, albeit they all look the same, but they look pretty good. But the pretty good is not the same as strategic. Because the question shouldn't just be, does this look like a website? The question should be, is this the right website for my business? Is this messaging clear? Do visitors immediately understand what you do? Does this page speak to the right person or position in your offer in a way that it makes sense? Are the calls to action easy to find? Does the page flow naturally? Are you building trust? These are all questions that I am thinking through when I build websites for my client. Is this website guiding someone to take the next step in the action that we want them to take? Or is it just a group of nice looking sections on a page? And this is the part that AI often misses as of right now, because AI can create something based on the information that you give it. But if you don't know what your website needs to do, you're not going to give it the right information. And this is not your fault. You are not a strategic website designer. You are a small business owner. You're not going to think of things in terms of conversion paths and user flow and trust signals. I built something free for you, and I want to tell you about it. It's a bot, and it's called the Homepage Clarity Check. What happens is you drop your website URL into the bot. It reviews your homepage the way a website strategist would, like me, and it tells you what a new visitor actually sees, what's working, and what to fix first. You can find it at jennybdesigns.com or click the link in the show notes. Now back to the episode. You're just going to think, I need a website that looks professional. And of course you do. But you also need a website that's doing its job 24/7, because your website isn't there just to look nice. It's there to help someone make a decision. And that is where the strategy matters. And one of the biggest things with AI, I think, is like the prompting spiral that we probably have all experienced. When you play around with a tool, you know what I mean. AI gives you something and you think, okay, that's pretty close, but not quite right. You prompt again, make it warmer, make it less corporate, make the headlines stronger. And then it gives you something and that doesn't work. You say, no, I don't like that. Try again, make it more clean, make it more fun. And then suddenly hours have gone by, maybe the whole afternoon, and AI has generated something, but did it actually save you time? Or are you just moving from time designing to prompting? And this is a part I think people underestimate. Sometimes prompting isn't faster, and prompting is a different kind of labor. It's instead of designing directly like I do, you're trying to describe the design decisions to a tool. And it is frustrating for me. I'll talk about my experience. But if you don't have the language for what you want, because you aren't a designer, it can get frustrating even more quickly. Because you'll know that something feels off, but you don't know how to explain what it is. The design isn't quite right, but you're not sure if it's the spacing or the fonts or the images. And so you keep prompting. All of a sudden, it just becomes this loop with the AI. And this isn't strategy, it's guessing. And the similar sort of thing happens when people try to do their websites themselves with a platform like Squarespace or Wix. It makes it easier. They move sections around, you change colors, swap fonts, but you're making changes based on what you like, not necessarily what the visitor needs. And AI can make the process feel faster at first. It makes you think, oh my goodness, this is amazing, because you just give it a prompt and all of a sudden you get something. But that is not the final product, and it takes a lot longer to get the final product. And let me just share with you, say you were able to go back and forth with the AI and you get a great prototype. You love the homepage design. It feels great. You want to use it. My question is, what do you do next? How do you connect that? How do you use it? How do you export it? How do you make it secure? How do you make sure it looks good on mobile? Are Google Analytics and Search Console attached? What happens if you want to make a new update? Like, all of these questions need to go through your mind, because this demo, what AI created, it shows a great website, but then what happens next? And I think a lot of people forget this. A website is not just a thing that you see on the screen, it is a whole system, and someone has to understand how that system works. And this is where that tech gap shows up. Connecting your website to your domain, knowing what platform your site is built on. Every small change that you need to make, you have to ask AI to make that changes. And then what do you do with that? How do you get the live version updated? Things like that. Now, let me share with you my experience and the reason for today's episode. The first thing I want to share with you is that I have had clients send me AI-generated mockups. And if you played around with Claude or ChatGPT or anything like that, when you ask it to design a website, it will design that prototype. And at first glance, you're like, wow, this is the coolest thing ever. But when you look at that prototype, you will notice that unless you are specific about the fonts and your design system and the colors that you want to use, that it looks like every other Claude design website. They all have a specific look and feel. Tends to use a lot of headlines broken up with italics to emphasize words. There's always eyebrow copy on every single section. This is something that I noticed right away. The colors are always very similar unless you share with them the colors that you want to appear. And I would hope that you would share your brand colors. There are no images because AI has a really difficult time building websites with images when you start adding images to the mix. And that is up today. And I'm really hoping this changes very soon because I really want AI to work. I am in love with how this process works. But there are no images in the website. So when you get that mockup, you don't have any images there. And so I've had a client send to me a mockup from AI and say, I would like to build this. Can you build it for me? And they were really excited because that mock-up that they made, it has like a really good vibe to it. Some of the colors are interesting. Some of the sections look pretty good. And I think it gives you a helpful starting point. But the thing is that when I look at the website that it has created, I'm always asking, does this layout that AI has created, does it support the business, the offer that the business has? Does every section that is created belong on the website? Because as I talk about in a lot of my episodes, less is more. It's all about what can you remove to make what's there be a little bit more prominent? Are the calls to action obvious? Does the visitor know what to do next? Does AI even know what the overall goal for this website is? Then, is the design accessible? Will it work on mobile? Does the copy make sense when it's not just a placeholder text? Because a lot of times when it creates the copy, it's just very standard like every other small business, and it doesn't make your brand personality shine through. And will it support your SEO goals? Is it built with SEO in mind? These are questions that separate a mock-up that you get from AI from a website, and that's where AI really starts to fall apart. Not because it's bad, but because it's not finished. It's a visual starting point. It gives you inspiration and not a concept. And I've had clients, like I shared, give me a mock-up and ask me, can you bring this to fruition? How much will it take for you to design this website? And I come back to them and I share with them that it's going to be my normal process. This gives me an idea of what you're looking for, but I'm not going to work with AI to refine this design. I would be redesigning this myself using this look and feel if you liked it, but then also asking the questions, what is the goal of this website? The purpose of these sections, do they belong on the site? And then, of course, getting the images into the website. I built a website through AI, and it was a painful process, and I'm hoping that it will change very soon. I've tried this multiple times, and my most recent attempt worked pretty well, but it was only a small 3-page website. It didn't have a larger blog. It didn't have a portfolio or anything like that. The challenge is that when you are prompting, and I came up with the whole brand strategy document. I had my brand assets. I had very clear direction for AI about the strategy behind the website, exactly what I wanted to happen, and then, of course, all my design back-end items and my design systems. When it created something, it was a decent attempt. But then, if I wanted to refine something, I had to go section by section, sharing my prompt, being specific as possible, asking for exactly what I wanted, and then waiting at least 3 to 5 minutes for every single version of the website to reappear. And I hit my limits. I'm on I think a $25 a month Claude plan. And as many times as I created a new chat window and tried to reduce the amount of tokens that he used for each prompt that I asked, I kept running out of tokens, and I had to pause until I had my time renewed with Claude. So it was a long, tedious process. And then to add the images, it was much more difficult. I actually had to push the prototype I was using Netlify. So I pushed the prototype to Netlify. Then I had to create a folder that had the images there so that I could have a URL for each image. Then I had to tell the prompting what my URL was for each image. And I am manually telling it where to put the images, how the images should look, and what to make changes. And I had to go back and forth on my homepage design at least 30 to 35 times to get a design that was decent, but it still needed more refinement. The thing is that every time I needed to refine it, I had to go back and prompt it, and it didn't get it right every single time. A good example is that I had a logo. I wanted it to be a decent size, not too big, but a decent size so you could see it. So I put the logo in. It gave me a design. It was too small. I asked it to be a little bit larger. It wasn't large enough. I asked it again. It was too large. So I'm learning. Maybe I should have been more specific and say, please increase the size by 150% or something like that. But the point is that I had to go back and forth to have it adjust a logo when, if I was designing it in WordPress and Elementor as I usually design, it would be one click. It would take me like 5 seconds to increase that logo size. And I had to do that with every single change that I needed to that design. As well, every time AI made an update, I would have to then download the HTML file and then upload it again to Netlify. So it was a long, tedious process. And to have pages connect to each other, that was a little bit more difficult. And to have anything that was relating to one another in the back end. As well, it took me time to make it mobile responsive. I had to have specific prompting for that so that people could see it on their iPad and their phones. And this project, to create a homepage and 2 other pages, for the homepage, it took me at least 9 or 10 hours. When I'm designing a homepage myself, I spend a fair amount, most of my time actually on the homepage, but it doesn't take nearly that amount of time to design a good homepage. And thinking about when I have to make changes going forward, I'll have to go back to my prompt, share the latest, and go back and forth with prompting to make those updates. Now, if I were to go through this process and give it to my clients to create something, and then I wanted to have them make an edit, are they capable of prompting with AI to have it build something and make that edit for them, then download that HTML file, then upload it to where it needs to go on the web? I don't know. Is that easier than asking them to just log into WordPress and make a change with a point and click system? I think right now it's harder. I think it's harder for me to design something that looks good, built on strategy. And I think it's harder for my client if I were to design it for them to be able to make edits with AI on their website. So that has been my experience so far as of today. And I thought I would share it. I want you to understand that AI is there and it makes you think that things are so easy and that it's so easy to get a website built for you. But the thing is that what is it building for you? It's building for you a prototype. It is not a fully finished website. Is it built on strategy? Does it represent your brand? And if you want it to be strategic and represent your brand and be more personal, then how much prompting do you have to actually do? You're going to have to do a lot of prompting. And then how do you get it live? That is the second challenge. How do you get it live and secure and safe so that people can use it and it's attached to your domain? Think about the time that you're spending. How much time do you have? Is that the best use of your time? I don't know. That's the question that you're going to have to answer. So before you use AI to build your website, or before you assume it's going to save you a ton of time, ask yourself a few things. Do you know what your website's main job is? Do you know who you're trying to reach? Do you know what offer you want to lead with? What your primary calls to action should be? Do you know what belongs on a homepage and what doesn't? And then on the technical side, do you know how to connect your domain, how to handle hosting? What about forms? That's something that I didn't mention earlier. How do you have a form? What happens when you need to create a form or make updates? How do you back up the website? What do you do when something breaks? And if all of those questions feel a little overwhelming, it's okay. It doesn't mean you're behind. It means that the build itself is only one part of the process, and it might not even be the hardest part. The hardest part of everything of building a website is knowing what to build and why. And today is important because I know a lot of people listening may have already tried to use AI for the website. Maybe you created something and now you're not sure what to do with it. Maybe you have a mock-up that looks good, but you don't know how to get it live. Maybe you built something, but updating it feels confusing. Or perhaps you're wondering if you did something wrong, like many of those Facebook posts that I see. You're not. You are just running into the complexity of building a website that actually works. And that complexity doesn't disappear because AI exists. Some parts get easier, some parts get faster, but the need for clarity doesn't go away. The need for strategy doesn't go away. And the need for a good user experience doesn't go away. If anything, today in 2026, I think that those things become even more important. So my honest take is that AI is a great brainstorming partner, a great starting point, and it can help you see possibilities. And it can help you move a little bit faster when you already have direction or get unstuck. But I would say, as of today, be careful about treating an AI-generated website as a finished business asset, especially if your website is supposed to be your hardest working employee, bringing in inquiries, supporting your credibility, and communicating your value. Because your website should be more than good enough. And a business deserves more than a website that just exists. You want your website to feel clear, aligned, that looks like you, that sounds like you, that supports your business, instead of becoming another thing that you have to wrestle with every single time. And that takes more than a prompt. It takes thought and structure and strategy. So if you're asking yourself after today if AI can design your website, the answer is yes, it probably can. But if you're asking if AI can create a strategic website that is right for my business, easy to maintain, and built around what my clients need to understand before they hire me, I would say I'm not sure. Because AI can give you a website, but it doesn't know your business the way a strategic designer like myself can. It can't ask those follow-up questions. It can't notice a disconnect between your offer and your messaging. And it can't always tell you the thing you asked for is not actually what your website needs. So to wrap this up, AI can design a website. It can create something pretty cool. It can give you a prototype and generate ideas. And it can make that blank page starting out feel a whole lot blank. And that's really exciting. I love this for us. I love AI. But a website is not just a design or a homepage or a prompt. It's a tool. And it needs to have strategy behind it with clarity, intention, and thoughtful decisions. It doesn't replace thinking. AI does not replace strategy. So next time you see someone say, I built my whole website with AI, I don't want you to panic. I don't want you to feel like you're behind. You don't know what to do. I want you to think of this. Ask yourself some better questions. Does it actually work? Is it clear? Can they update it? Does it guide people to the next step? And is it actually helping their business? Because that is the real measure. Not whether you can generate a website quickly with AI, but whether it can do its job. And if you are sitting there thinking you have a website, but don't know if it's actually doing its job, that's exactly where my website coaching call can help. We can look at your site together, talk through what's working, what's confusing, what's missing, and what needs to happen next. You can find a link in the show notes. And as always, I'm here to help. And if you have created a website with AI, I would love to hear from you and see it and get your thoughts and feedback about how the experience was and anything that I didn't include as of today, because the landscape is rapidly changing. And I love to stay up to date because I think these tools can be really helpful if used right. I'll talk to you next time. And that wraps up another episode of Website Design Made Simple. I hope you found the insights shared in this episode valuable and takes you one step closer to creating a website that attracts more of your ideal clients and builds your brand. If you enjoyed this episode, please take a minute to leave a review on Apple Podcasts or a rating on Spotify. Your review will help us reach more small business owners like you who are ready to make more money with their website. Thank you so much for listening, and I'll see you in the next episode.